Hello, hello, hey, sweet people. Welcome to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. My name is Foster, and as you can probably hear, I am outside in a park, which is something I do quite often, but probably something I could do even more. So you will probably hear a little bit of construction, a lot of birds. That's just part of the territory. It comes with the territory, as we say in English. So in the beginning of the pandemic, when I was in the US, sometimes I would just walk in the woods and record audios. And sometimes we put those on the podcast. And I was simply doing it because I was lonely, I was missing Alexia, and it's just kind of like an audio journal, an audio diary. And I imagine most people think this is kind of weird, this is kind of boring, this is not really helping my English. But I do remember that one of our students, Ismael, specifically said that he loved those episodes, and he found them very helpful at the beginning of the pandemic. So this one's for you, Ismael. Ismael has also appeared on our podcast. So you can see that he is just a wonderful person and an incredibly advanced English speaker. So you should check those episodes out with Ismael. Anyways, a little while ago on the podcast, we were talking about mental health, and there's one kind of concept, there's one framework that I did not talk about, but that I've been thinking a lot about recently. So I just kind of wanted to talk about it here, because maybe it will be helpful for some of you listening. So the idea is the difference between long-term thinking and short-term thinking, or long-term planning, or thinking like in the immediate present. And the simplest version of this idea is most humans, we are terrible at long-term planning. We just do not have a good capacity to really imagine what the future will look like and how we will feel in the future. So we make the majority of our decisions in the short term. You know, we want to feel good now. We want to have things now or tomorrow or next month. And I really cannot tell you how incredibly powerful this idea, this differentiation between thinking in the short term and thinking in the long term, how powerful of an idea this can be. And it truly applies to everything. So in the mental health context, when I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling depressed, my natural instinct is like, how can I immediately feel better? Like, is there medicine? Is there a doctor? Can I take a nap? Do I call Alexia? All of those are wonderful things. Those are definitely things that you should do, especially talk to a doctor. But when you're thinking about things from a more long-term perspective, I usually think, oh, this is not going to last forever. I'm not going to feel this way forever. I'm not going to feel anxious every single day of my life. I'm not going to feel depressed every single day of my life. It's super difficult to imagine a happy Foster 10 years from now who does not have to deal with depression every day. But that Foster probably exists somewhere in the future. So it just completely changes the perspective. Instead of dealing with the problem now, you're seeing it from the future, and it just makes things a lot lighter, a lot easier for me, at least sometimes. And the reason I've been thinking about this concept for a lot of reasons, but Alexia and I recently watched a series on Netflix by Vox. I believe it was called Money Explained. And they were talking about the same idea, like people saving money for retirement, and that it's really difficult for humans to imagine themselves in the future. So, for some reason, it's easier for us to imagine other people in the future. Like, we can think, oh yeah, my friend Jack, in 10 years, I imagine he'll be doing the same thing with the same job. But when we think about ourselves, when we think about, how are we really going to feel? What are our relationships going to look like? What kind of impact are we going to make in society? How much money will we have? It's really difficult to think about that. But that sort of future self-reflection, that's like an impossibly difficult skill. And I don't have any answers, or even suggestions or recommendations really about how to improve that muscle. But for me, at least, just the fact that I know it exists, I know that Foster is going to exist in the future, and that Foster is going to look different and feel different and be different in a lot of ways, and I should probably think about him and love him, just like the way I try to love myself nowadays. Just thinking about that simple thing, that can be a real game changer. I think that's it. I imagine this did not make any sense at all. So maybe we will not put this on the podcast. But if it does make sense, we'll put it on the show. As always, we love you guys. Keep up the good fight and lose well.